Good morning, Dan Delmar in for Elias Makos. Yesterday on the show, Elias dealt with the issue of screens in schools and specifically esports, which are kind of immune from some of these cell phone and screen bans. Should that be, or should we take another look at esports as perhaps a problem for young developing minds? We'll get to our guest in a second who did a doctoral thesis on this subject. But first, yesterday on the program, Philippe Ward, he's actually the coach of the esports program at Edouard Montpetit High School. He collaborates to create, develop, and implement these esports programs throughout Quebec, and he makes the case for esports and the physical benefits as well.
So we're taking these kids who might as well be playing video games at the same moment and helping them develop skills through playing with each other that will be useful, beneficial pretty much anywhere they're going to go. So like you mentioned in the intro, there's teamwork, there's communication skills, there's managing their own stress, discipline, regulation, all these things that come into play when we're with them, because they're not just playing video games freely, they're training on it. They're using it to get better, not only in the game, but themselves.
What do you say to someone that thinks they can get all the benefits you outline in real sports?
Well, I would say that not everybody wants to do real sports. Kids don't always find themselves enjoying every single thing, let's say, that their parents will sign them up on, and some of them won't really enjoy doing sports. It's important that if they want to move around, they're put into activities that will, encourage them, not necessarily be the main reason why they're there. We do enforce physical activity when they're with us because it's part of a healthy lifestyle. There's no avoiding the fact that you need to move around. And even though part of the time they're with us will be in front of screens, in front of computers, there's a whole other part that's quite important to us where they're going to be moving around and keeping active, more than what they would have in school, in fact.
That was Philippe Ward, coach of the esports program at Edouard Montpetit High School with Elias yesterday. Let's pick up from where they left off. Antoine Lemay studied esports as part of his doctoral thesis. He was featured in the article in La Presse this week. Antoine, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Anything to pick up there on the comments from Philippe Ward about the benefits, the physical benefits especially, of esports, and why you would argue that it is a good alternative to those who can't or don't want to participate in physical sports?
Well, no one's arguing those benefits, in fact, and this is really with this idea in mind that the first esport program, parascholar esport program, were created to try to increase school perseverance in youth that might not find their interest in more traditional sports, if you will. However, like the study shows another side of the medal. No one's arguing those benefits, but there are also potential harms that we see. And the study highlights both those benefits and those harms. So on one hand, we see that, people who are in sport programs spend much more time they have much more screen time than their counterparts who play video games but are not esport players. They spend about 20 hours more on screens than their peers. They have a proportion 2.5 higher of problematic gamers than young people who plays video game but don't do esport. So these data raise concerns. However, we see that there are benefits, social benefits, psychological benefits, benefits in their family relationships, and on their motivation. Mm-hmm. However, they also report consequences on their study. They report that it decreased their leisure times on other activities. Some of them also report consequences in their family relationships, and they report more sleep problems. So we can summarize the study by saying something in the line of, make it make sense. If you spend much more screen time because you do esport, it highlights the importance to make informed decision and maybe reduce screen time in other places in your life to create more a balance in your digital diet.
So is that the conclusion then of your thesis, is that esports can be an important part of the curriculum if you are careful and don't go overboard with screen time elsewhere in your day or your week?
Exactly. What we propose is to strictures and to put strategies to increase the benefits and decrease the consequences. So And the data that I reported, that the consequences and benefit that I just talked about, well, this is considering that there are already some strategies in places. It was in a school where students needed to maintain their academic performances. They needed to do exercise every week. They needed to attend talks about like healthy lifestyle. And we still see that they spend much more time on screen time. So it doesn't seem to happen organically that playing doing esport at school will reduce your gaming time at home. So this is why we think it's important that there's a sort of to create like a sort of a team around the kid, that it's not only the kid responsibility to auto-control their gaming time, it's not only the school responsibility to detect and to prevent problem, and it's not only the parents' responsibility, but if everybody come together and everybody's included in the program, it will increase the possibility to open dialogues between parents that maybe feel guilty because some parents have a hard time controlling their kids' screen times. So maybe they can be more on the same page. And also, it doesn't only rely on the school to reduce screen time at home, if you will.
Mm-hmm. It's a very hard time for you to argue this, of course, because the education minister is clamping down on screen time and going pretty far, even banning cell phones from schools in general, which I think might be a little excessive. It's one thing to keep them out of class, but to ban them for the entire day is quite another. But I think the amount of time spent here is a little scary to me. When you have heavy gamers spending, like I said in the article, une trentaine, about 30-ish hours per week, and then you have these esports players at 50-plus hours per week, I mean, that's a lot of time. That's a full-time job, more than one full-time job in some cases. So can this be healthy? Is there a way to make 50 hours of video gaming a week healthy under any circumstances?
In my opinion, that will be very hard not to impair other spheres of your life or other activities. And this is what the data show too. They report that it impacts their leisure activities and also their study or their work. So we see that it takes too much places. And in a more recent study conducted by Magali Dufault, which is actually like the continuation of the study that we conducted, when we asked the esport players themselves, they report that, well, when we asked them in the last year, did your gaming time for esport increase? Most of them say yes, and most of them wants to make change in their gaming habits. So it's not only us from the outside that demonize video game, but it's only let's put something in place to create a more balanced digital diet. Mm-hmm. And for some kids, gaming is a passion, and it doesn't go against the fact that we need a healthy digital diet, because if you take the motivational theories of Robert Valran at UQAM on passions, well, a passion can be harmonious in your life, which will be positive and will bring a more personal development and will help you develop your identity. Or it can slide on a more obsessive part of the passion, which is a more rigid implication in the activity, and it's associated with more consequences, depressive symptoms, and addiction. So we can see that the passion can become more obsessive and become more problematic. And this is what we suggest. Let's put efforts to keep this passion harmonious and that will last longer in the kid's life by reducing consequences and maybe by diluting the passion instead of over-investing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the end of these programs, what are the benefits? Are there focus, cognitive improvements that we see in these kids? Are they trained for a profession in particular? What are they doing with this training?
In our study, it was a parascholar program. So the aim was not necessarily to create cyber athletes or the next new champion of Canada in e-sport, but it was really just to offer an agreeable activity to people who enjoy gaming. So it creates a sort of cohort of kids who just practice together, develop strategies. They have prevention activities on communication skills to better communicate between themselves, and we see that they have social benefits too. So yeah, they do report those benefits, but at the same time, we cannot unsee the fact that there's also harm, and especially when they report harm on the family relationship and on their sleep, which is risk factor to develop more problematic gaming. So it's very interesting, and it can be a very interesting prevention strategies to use these data to make informed decision on whether it's a good idea to participate in a sport program, to open dialogues on it, and to reduce the consequences.
And in terms of inspiration, I wonder if you've read the book Ender's Game, because that one comes to mind with this issue, and a best case scenario for what happens to a young kid who gets really into video games. Did you ever read that one?
I haven't read the book, but I saw the movies.
Okay, the movie. Well, that works too. It's that to me is. I wonder if we're going to be training soldiers, for example, in that same way, using esports in the future. I mean, we are using flight simulators, right? And that's common practice for airlines. So perhaps we are underestimating the impact of this.
Mm-hmm. And we see also doctors can practice surgery by using like digital means too. So they are advantageous too. But it's important to consider that we're talking about adolescence in high school. It's a very crucial windows of time in life where if you develop important problem and you slide more on an addictive path, well, it can impact your introduction into adulthood, and it can impair your life significantly. So that's why we feel it's important to focus on, well, just let's be careful. Let's study this phenomenon and have data and try to protect the kids, not by banning e-sport. That's not what the study is saying, but just let's be careful and create a balance between the benefits, the potential consequences.
Antoine Lemay studied esports in school as part of his doctoral thesis. Thanks very much for the conversation today.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.